Hello, everybody. How you guys doing? Happy time here today. I am Dr. Alicia with Coaching with Dr. Alicia, and I'm so happy to be back here on Sunday with yet another therapist. I want to say happy Super Bowl to everybody, and um, I feel sorry for all of the, let's see, who are the fans? The Dallas Cowboys. I feel sorry for the Dallas Cowboy fans, for the Detroit Lions fans, and apparently the Baltimore Ravens. Those fans are really sad today. But before we get into our Super Bowl party, which is very male dominated, right? We want to have a conversation that focuses on male and female relationships, particularly couple of days before big time Valentine's Day. And to help me dive into this topic about sexual intimacy and how to keep the spark alive, and to provide some insights into different ways in which you can enhance yourself in terms of your intimate connection. So today, part of our Valentine's Day special, we are going to tackle this topic. And I think it's very crucial, particularly to long-term relationships. It's easy to keep that passion going when you just met and you're just all excited, learning about each other. Easy to keep the passion going then. But we'll have a little bit of a conversation about how to get that spark going, particularly in very long-term relationships. And I've invited my wonderful therapist friend with me. Her name is Nikquan Lewis, and she is a relationship and sex therapist from Houston, Texas. Welcome, Nikquan, today. And she's going to help us talk about how to get that spark going. And before we get into it, I just want to say hello to everybody. There's a couple of people coming in to talk to us today, and I appreciate you guys coming in on a busy day when it's the biggest day in football. I really appreciate anybody coming in to talk to us today and to hang out with us. Put a comment in the chat and questions that you might have. It'll be anonymous if you want it to be, about your sexual life. Anyway, today we're going to talk about why communication is so important to keep that passion going in your relationship. And Valentine's Day would be a wonderful time to be able to articulate some of your wants and needs in the bedroom. Definitely, we're going to talk about how to explore. And then we'll also kind of talk about emotional intimacy and making sure that we have that emotional connection is highly related to sexual connection. So we're going to talk about those three topics today. And before we get into it, I do want to welcome you. Nikquan, welcome.
Thank you so much, friend.
Yes, tell the audience a little bit about your background before we get into our topic today.
All right, you guys. So yes, everybody come on in. I'm so happy to be here with my good friend, Dr. Alicia. So I am Nikquan Lewis. I am the owner of Intimate Connections PLLC, located here in Katy, Texas, suburb of Houston. Same thing, right? I am a speaker. I'm a professional wellness consultant, and I assist in my private practice. I assist individuals and couples with improving intimacy with themselves first, and then others.
I love it.
I'm super happy to be here. Happy Usher Day. I know y'all, for my people that's just here for Usher, yes. I'm one of them. Super Bowl, fine and dandy. We're here for Usher.
I'm here for Usher too. And I just got back from Las Vegas, and I was telling my husband, I was like, how come you didn't bring me down here when Usher was performing? So I go to the Usher concert.
I went twice. Okay.
Oh, yes. I bet it was great.
It was a time. It was a time. So yes, happy Usher to the people.
Yes, and there's no place like Las Vegas to help get that spark going. Las Vegas is just, there's something freeing and sexual about Las Vegas that really makes it kind of like anything goes. That's sort of the atmosphere you get in Las Vegas. But anyway.
You need that every now and then, right?
You do. You need something to kind of break things up a little bit, going on vacations and stuff. What do you have to say about that? Before we get into the topic, what do you have to say about couples and just keeping that spark going for Valentine's Day? What do you have to say? Let's start there.
So it is imperative. I see so many couples that are just kind of stuck in the monotony of life, right? Life is life for all of us. But if we do not prioritize connection aka prioritize that spark by focusing on the various types of intimacy, you end up in that roommate phase, right? And who wants that? So as we're talking about, Vegas and keeping it spicy, that speaks more to experiential intimacy. So just there are five main types of intimacy. There are several others, but there's like five umbrella types, right? Sexual intimacy, which we're going to get into, is only one type of physical intimacy. So the five types are experiential, a Vegas trip, shared hobbies, interests, right? Um, Physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And you have several other forms of of intimacy, but focusing on these things lead to a healthy relationship. And I'm a huge believer that a good sex is a result of a healthy relationship.
Yeah,
So
that's really
prioritize.
yeah, that's very interesting you talk about that because it goes into my first point. It's like, how do you, when couples have been together for a very long time, or when couples just first start dating, how do you talk openly about your desires, your boundaries, your fantasies with your partner? And sometimes that's the foundation of a real thrilling sex life. How can you share some techniques in how to start these conversations in a comfortable environment where you don't feel like ashamed of what you kind of desire inside? You're too afraid to talk about it with your partner of all people. What do you have
Yeah.
to say to that?
So it starts with first knowing that these conversations are necessary, right? So many of us did not grow up, me included, having that healthy image of what relationship should be, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of us are, and we're doing the best that we can, but off that leads to relationship trauma. So it's first understanding what the foundation of a healthy relationship looks like, what the foundation of a healthy sex life looks like, and how to build that. And so for my people that don't know how to do that, there are resources to assist you with that. And we can get into that later on, but it's knowing that number one is creating emotional safety. Because if I don't feel comfortable with you, right, if I feel like you're going to judge me, or if you're screwing your face up and looking at me crazy and making noises and grabbing your pearls,
Oh
I'm not
no.
going to share my deepest thoughts with you, my desires, my fantasies, right? So first is creating that safe space where we know that we can discuss anything. Because just because we're talking about sex and I might say I like this doesn't mean that you have to do that, but can we discuss it? Because you never know, you may be open to variations of different things. But it starts with communication. It starts with saying that safe space and then being able to
Yeah.
discuss the necessary things to establish that healthy foundation.
Yeah, because you kind of feel like there's certain things sexually that's kind of like taboo. And
Oh
you
yeah.
feel like uncomfortable talking about it. And sometimes you feel like, okay, maybe this is kind of off limits, and it's destigmatizing them within your relationship and making your other partner feel comfortable and starting those conversations. And I don't know, playing games or asking each other like kind of wild and crazy questions, stuff like that, I think would be really nice. And no matter what they say, don't try to make them feel like embarrassed by like their hidden desires, because if you do that, then they'll never want to share anything with you again. And that's terrible, because if you're really in a loving, committed relationship, you would want to try to make your partner's needs, sexual needs, met in the bedroom. And so that's part of that whole intimacy, that whole expansive intimacy and emotional intimacy. It's all so connected with what happens at night. So what happens in the daytime happens at night. When they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, it's not like that in relationships. It's like what happens in the daytime, it has an effect on what happens at night. We can't keep it separate here.
Absolutely. Intimacy starts in it's in everything we do, right? It's when you open your eyes. It's how you greet one another. It's how you connect or not throughout the day, right? Because if we come tonight, we are busy, we've been completely disconnected, and I feel disconnected from you, I'm likely not going to want to, have sex, right? Like, who are you? We haven't connected at all. So intimacy is in everything that we do. So yes, What happens in the day happens at night. And of course, we're not
But
just saying that sex is just for night, right? Sex is anytime that you prioritize it.
yeah, prioritizing it all, that can be definitely a challenge. So anyway, I just want to welcome everybody who may have come in a little later. I have my dear friend, sex therapist Nikquan Lewis, and she's coming in here today to talk about having really good sex on Valentine's Day. It's a topic. I'm not a sex therapist. It's a topic that I would feel way too uncomfortable talking about in detail with my clients or even on YouTube necessarily. So I like to bring you in so that you can talk about some of those things that I even am ashamed to talk about. My children are watching, my parents are watching, my family is watching. So I feel a little uncomfortable sharing all of that, but I do have 3 children. And how do you think they got here? So I had to think about it that way. But anyway, I just want to welcome everybody here. That's what we're talking about today. Gerald Timberlake, hello to you. He's saying hello to us. And Colent, Vibrarium. Oh my goodness. Cobalt copper. Oh my goodness. These are precious metals going on. So if you want me to shout you out, say hello in the chat and let us know that you can hear us. If you have any questions for our sex therapist, you need something, put it in the chat and I'll announce your question online here. So anyway, that I want to bring you to the second topic that I want to talk about is variety and exploration. And I'm
Yes.
just curious about how we can offer ideas for individuals so that they can keep things exciting and exploring new activities, positions, maybe role play scenarios. Tell us, how do we do that?
Alrighty. So it's going to always, always, always start with that emotional safety, creating that safe
Okay.
space, right? Then it's understanding and communicating what your boundaries are around all the things, right? So we're talking about sex. That means we're clear on our boundaries in our relationship, right? So now let's talk about our sexual boundaries, right? What are our
Mm.
beliefs around sex? So after we, understand the emotional safety, we understand our boundaries. We want to understand what our shared definition of what a healthy and exciting sex life consists of. What does it look like? And I'm talking about frequency. I'm talking about what we might want to try, right? And so many people we're not on the same page, right? Because if person A, feels like they want sex five times a week, but person B doesn't want that. They want it might be once a week, right? Now we have to create some kind of bridge. But oftentimes there's a lot of conflict around that because we have not come up with that shared definition that represents both of us. I'm talking about that compromise, right? Understanding that this needs to represent both of us because a healthy relationship represents you and me, not just what you want and not just what I want, right? It's not the Nikquan show. It's me and my husband. So we need to understand what that looks like for both of us and now create a bridge. And so when we want to talk about, getting it spicy, there are several things that we can do. We can, of
Okay.
course, resources that we'll get into. As if you come to see me, I have what's called the yes, no, or maybe form, and it has so many different sexual acts. And again, so we got to define sex first of all, right? Because sex is a number of things. So this form has a lot of physical sexual acts, and everyone fills it out. If it's a
Hmm.
yes for you for that item, then it's a yes. If it's a no, then it's a no. If it's a maybe, then it's a maybe. But the goal is to open the dialogue because even though a no may
Mm.
be, maybe I don't want to do it in this way, but maybe I may want to try it in a different variation, right? So let's get the conversation going so we can first understand what is it that we like and what is it that we may want to try. Because a fantasy is a fantasy. It exists in the mind. It doesn't mean it's because what I'm turned on by and I may like that I may not want to try it. There's a difference.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so fascinating because I always talk to couples about communication styles. I always talk to couples about differences. Like, okay, so you're different on these things. It's not the end of the relationship. You have to have a compromise. And of course, it's the same way in the bedroom. And How is it then do you help clients develop this compromise when, for instance, you have somebody on one end saying yes, yes, yes to everything, and then on the other hand, someone saying no and maybe. So there's like a mismatch between sexual desires and ways of exploring. And then you also mentioned something about frequency. There's some people who are just high frequency individuals, and somehow they end up marrying somebody who has lower frequency, who doesn't want it so much. And everybody has uh, their own personal perspective into how frequent they want it. What do you do when you work with clients where it's such a mismatch? And then what ends up happening is that either one person is left feeling like their needs aren't really satisfied, or the person with the low desire is feeling like, oh my God, I got to do this as a duty. It's like duty sex. It's like, if I don't do it, I don't want this person to go and find somebody else that'll do it. If you won't do it, somebody else will. You got all this pressure on us. And tell me, how do you help clients deal with this mismatch? Oh my goodness.
It's a common occurrence every single day.
Okay.
Every single day. So you're talking about a number of things. You're talking about desire discrepancy, which is the way that we get turned on, that difference in libido or sex drive, same thing. And then you're talking about a difference in, what we want sexually, that sexual appetite. So first, if you come to see me, I'm always going to ask you, have you been to the doctor? Have you gotten your hormone levels checked? Right?
Oh.
Especially, so my people that I see are about between the ages of like 35 to like 55. And so anywhere in that time, especially towards the later 30s, earlier 40s, there may be a lot of hormonal fluctuations. And so I have a lot of people that come to me and they go to the doctor, my testosterone was low. My estrogen was low. And so, once we can address this from a physical health standpoint, now we can work more so on expanding that definition of sex life, what you may want to try, understanding that, sex is a number of things. It's not just penetration, right? So once we can address the desire discrepancy with a hormonal thing, now we can understand, is a person more so responsive as far as their desire goes? Meaning, this person doesn't just have sex on the brain. Oftentimes, this person needs more of a stimulus. So this person may need more of their love language spoken to feel connected. They may need physical touch to feel connected. Now they get frisky, right? Whereas some people are just spontaneous, and it's just the wind can blow and they're feeling frisky, right? They don't need nothing. Is that, when we were in our 20s, that's what was going on, right? So, but it's understanding that one is not better than the other. But if my partner and I don't understand that there's a difference in how we connect, and now I don't have the language for that, how can we meet each other's needs? So I educate people on desire discrepancy, understanding what makes you get turned on, when do you get turned on, what's the intimacy like, right? What conversations are you having? What is the emotional safety and security like? What's the relationship like? Because if that libido is low, chances are the relationship isn't where it needs to be, on top of like the physical and things like that. Right. So it's a lot of things that I go down to assist couples with building that perfect sex life for them.
Wow, I mean, it sounds like you take a really holistic approach. You're like, hey, maybe the first thing we need to do is rule out a medical condition, which is interesting because that's what they tell us when we're in school to be a therapist. They say always rule out a medical condition, let them get a physical and make sure things are working properly. It would make sense that would be the same way in the bedroom if there's some issues there, intimacy issues there, and how hormone levels change throughout a relationship. And then you internal. It's so interesting because I see so many couples internalize that. They just say, you know what? If that person doesn't want it as much as I do, maybe they don't love me anymore. Maybe they don't find me attractive. And sometimes that's not necessarily the case. They really do love you and find you attractive. It's just their hormones are out of whack.
Yeah. Or there's, performance anxiety, or, erectile dysfunction, or, pain with sex. These are questions that people don't know that to have, right? And so, again, there's resources to assist you with what questions to ask. Because what I find out, especially so let's talk about the longer term couples who may have some relationship, trauma and things like that.
Oh,
If you are answering questions between me and you, right? We got relationship trauma. I'm likely giving you a side eye, trying to figure out what are you trying to say, low key, like what are you trying to sneak in here, right? Is this a dig?
yeah.
Versus using a resource. Now the resource is doing the question, the questioning, right? And it's not me. There is no internalizing because
Oh,
this is an external question and not okay. What are you trying to get at? So it
oh.
really does help to take the edge off, and it removes the higher risk of internalizing, which is a big thing, especially the longer you're in that relationship.
Yeah, it's like they don't love me no more. What's going on? Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you for addressing that. I mean, I'm certain that's a very, common issue. And I don't know, again, when you talked about communication in safe spaces, people walk around feeling this way all day, and for a long time in a relationship it builds up resentment only because
Ooh,
they were too afraid to have that conversation, and it's almost like a disease that festers in the relationship. Like, it's like if things are unspoken and you don't have these conversations, you just make up in your head reasons why. You're not checking with your partner first, and of course you internalize it, and then it just festers and festers, and next thing you know, relationships could really go down into a really dark, terrible place, of which, when the resentment is built up, I've worked with so many couples where I'm just like, I don't know if we can even get past the years and years of pain and hurt that the two of you have with each other, just because you didn't have these conversations in a way that's safe, without
yeah,
getting defensive and attacking each other and blaming each other and pointing the fingers. It's really something that you gotta kind of have in a nice, relaxing, fun environment, believe it or not, so that people feel more comfortable having that emotional connection. I feel like that's so tied to in the bedroom, the emotions.
absolutely.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, everybody, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We won't be on here too long. We gotta make sure we get ready for the Super Bowl and make sure we get to take Miss Usher's halftime performance. Anyway, I'm here with Nikquan, and as we deep dive into the world of sexual intimacy and connection, I'm really curious, Nikquan, about your personal interests and things that shape the perspectives of you and everybody I bring on as my guest. And I'm just wondering if you could share with us either your favorite book or favorite television show that resonates with you on a professional level and perhaps influences your approach to the work you do with couples.
Absolutely, that is a great question.
You can think
So my
about
one
it
of
for
my
a minute.
well, I'm pretty clear
Okay.
on stuff. So my favorite book when I was getting started is probably "Come as You Are" by Emily Nagoski. I believe I'm saying her name right. I have when I tell you I have a million books right here next to me because I'm always grabbing a resource for a client. Yes, Emily Nagoski, "Come as You Are." This is like a staple for us sex therapists, and this inspired me to create my own resources, which are a favorite, an
Well,
absolute
tell us
favorite.
about your resources. Let everybody know of your resources while we're on the topic.
Absolutely. So I have the "How Do You Want It" relationship and sex conversation cards, and they're beautiful. And they are so in having my favorites, it is important to understand, I guess, my why for being a sex therapist, right? So I'm a teen mom. Not a teen anymore, right? But I was a teen mom. I grew up in a lot of trauma, domestic violence as a child. So because a lot of us did not have a healthy image of relationship, no one was teaching us what sexual health was, how to protect ourselves, how to enjoy any of those things growing up, right? I had to figure it out on my own. So I created products to assist individuals and couples with creating healthy relationships and designing sex lives that are perfect for them. So these products are my favorite. I use them in session. My clinicians, they use them in sessions, not my clinicians, but my clinician friends. And I train clinicians on how to assess sexual health for the very reason that you said, because a lot of clinicians still have that stigma that a lot of us were, we just, society has, right? So I have a digital guide to intimacy that does the same, but it has bonus questions. It has book recommendations. It has strategies to implement the changes that people want to see. So if there's ever
That's
a
great.
favorite resource, it definitely would be the conversation
Come as
cards,
you
because
are.
again,
The conversation card.
yeah, if because I'm doing the blame me, right? Don't blame each other for asking the questions.
Ah, okay.
Blame me because I could take, right? So absolutely. There's 3 sections: healthy relationships, boundaries, and sex and intimacy.
Very nice. I mean, I think that's really good to offer your clients, things that you've worked on and developed out of your experience. That book, Come As You Are, I really recommend people get that book. I've read that book and I've actually listened to the audiobook as well. It is it opened my eyes to assumptions that I had about intimacy that I didn't even know that was there. So I do recommend that Come As You Are book. Oh wow. Okay. So hi everybody. Anybody have let's look at the chat. Hey, Team Opulence. Look at Team Opulence. Welcome, Team Opulence. I remember Team Opulence. And look, See though says you ladies are beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
You.
This must be
Thank you.
someone very romantic. Be ready
Thank
for
you.
though. I appreciate that. So anyway, if you have a question before we wrap up today, you can put it in the chat. If not, you can reach out to Nikquan. She is a therapist. She specializes in sex therapy, and she is here today to talk about ways to keep things spicy for Valentine's Day. And that leads us to my last question for you is all about the emotional intimacy and the connection piece. How couples can foster emotional connection, because let me tell you, life is hard. People get stressed out. You're busy. You got kids. You got a busy life going on. And I know you talked about prioritizing the relationship and time together in the relationship, but people are just stressed out. And I wanted you to discuss activities that we could do quickly that can help keep emotional bonding, such as sharing vulnerability, spending quality time together. What are some things that we could do in our busy, stressful schedules to keep this spark going?
Okay, so quick and dirty. So one is understanding the components of effective communication, right? Because if we're not talking to each other lovingly, I don't want to talk to you. Don't talk to me, right? So it's understanding your delivery, your word choice, your tone. Delivery matters. I don't care if you've been married 30 years, delivery matters. You cannot talk to me any kind of way and think that I'm going to want to connect to you, right? So it's understanding that first. You may be surprised, but there's several couples that I talk to who go all day and sometimes days, and there's no physical touch, not even a hug, right? So it's prioritizing, at least 2 to 3 hugs a day for at least 30 seconds. Not that church lady hug, and I'm a believer, so shout out to the church, but I'm talking about an embrace where you feel each
With your
other's
booty sticking
heartbeats.
out, you're like, don't step into the
No,
hug. Don't be sticking your
that
booty
side.
out like you at church.
Yeah, no. Like I'm talking about
Okay.
embrace each other, feel each other's warmth,
Yeah.
heartbeat, slow it down, right? Also, so understand, when is a good time for sex. We're talking about realistic. We want to be realistic with each other. Would it be, nice to think that we're gonna have sex 5 times a week or 7 times a week and we got kids and work and all these things? If you can, more power to you. But if it's a struggle, understand that scheduling sex is not a bad thing. because people think, oh, it's robotic. If we got to schedule it, it's a problem. People that have that belief don't end up having it, right? Because they fight against that scheduling. If it's Wednesday night at 9 p.m. and the kids are in bed, it can be as spontaneous as you want it. You can come to that sex session with your toys, your lingerie, your sexy pajamas, right? Not them raggedy flannel pajamas that men be wearing, right? You can still spice it up. It can still be spontaneous, but you're committed and that time is protected. So prioritize times to connect. And again, sex is whatever you make of it. It doesn't have to be penetration, but it's if it's oral, if it's kissing, if it's touching those erogenous zones, right? So it's prioritizing that sex, prioritizing physical touch. And I'm talking about non-sexual physical touch and sexual physical touch. It's prioritizing and protecting emotional safety so that, if you love me, talk to me like you love me. We can have issues, but respect is a non-negotiable. So if we do these things, you are more likely to have, the healthy sex life that you want. And talk about it. So many people are not talking about sex, even if you're not having it for one reason or another. Talk about it, talk about what it is that you want and be mindful of your language. If you only talk about what's wrong, that's the energy you're bringing into that conversation versus this is what's going well and this is what can be better. It's a different mindset.
Excellent. I think everybody just listening, y'all share this with your Valentine's Day boo.
Yeah.
Share this link. Be sure forward this to your Valentine's Day boo, and that would be great to build some anticipation. I think what you're saying, the scheduling of things, I think it's nice because that builds anticipation. Be like, wait till Wednesday. Wait, when's Valentine's Day? Wednesday? Wait till Wednesday night, honey. Get some anticipation going. I like the idea of scheduling. And the whole thing with physical touch, it makes sense, right? Because what's interesting is that I read an article that men are more likely to enjoy physical touch than women because men really enjoy that sort of like hands-on and all of that touching, that for some reason men, and it makes sense because what the article mentioned was that women, because they're primarily caretakers, they've been if they have small children, they've been touched all day, and usually at night they're like, I don't want nobody touching me. I've had these kids touching me, although it's a different type of touch, of course, but for real, you got kids hanging off of you. Children, my kids are insatiable when it comes to hugging and sitting on your lap and all this. Sometimes at the end of the day, you're just like, I don't want nobody touching me, I don't want nobody around me. I need time by myself. And so what they were talking about is that men, they don't get to touch everybody all day because that wouldn't be nice to do it, at work or whatever men do. You can't just walk around touching people, so they look to their spouse or they look to their significant other for that touch because it's not so taboo for women as it is for men to be touching. So I happened to read that and I thought it was really fascinating, that dynamic in terms of physical touch. But even in understanding this dynamic, it's so important to do that physical touch. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything to that?
So it's so common. I can't say with all of the couples that I have worked with that I ever had one where the men's love language was not physical touch. But in just what you're talking about, as moms, we feel it's actually called like being touched out. It's just too much. But also time, if I only hug you and you want to grab my butt or grab my boobs, I don't want that, right? I just want an embrace that is just for me. And it's not tied to, someone needing something from me, right? So there's nothing wrong with sexual touch, but we want to encompass all the types of intimacy. Prioritize that and watch the impact to your sexual relationship and your relationship as a whole, right? Watch the connection build when you prioritize intimacy as a whole. And I'm talking about connection and sex, not just sex.
Interesting. Well, everybody, I'm going to thank you all for tuning in with us today. Thank you so much, Nikquan. We're going to keep this conversation going, by the way. We're going to keep having conversations about intimacy because, Nikquan, you got so much knowledge. And it's so funny because it's like you mentioned couples feel shy about talking about these things. So they use you to talk about it in session. But I'm using you to talk about it here on YouTube because I'm uncomfortable talking about it out like this. So I want this is you're a caveat. You're a vessel for these types of conversations because sexual intimacy is so important in relationships. It's what makes it unique, monogamous relationships in particular. And I think that's something that we can't overlook. I spent so much time talking about emotional intimacy. I spent so much time even talking about financial intimacy.
Oh yeah.
My husband and I would talk about love and money all the time, but we don't necessarily get into how it is so related to sexual intimacy, how it's important to keep that spark alive. And you're connecting in all these different ways. Why not make sure that you maintain connection in a way that's unique to the relationship? So this makes sense to me. I mean, I love these conversations. I want everybody out here to have really good sexual intimacy on Valentine's Day in particular. Make this video and make this an opportunity to keep these conversations going. We said it, so they don't be like Nikquan and Alicia said that we got to keep these conversations going. So use us as a caveat to make sure you guys keep these conversations going, keeping Black love strong. And
Yes.
you ain't never been loved till you've been loved by a Black person. So,
That's
so we
right.
got to keep this going. That's what I say. And I really I love that you came here to talk to me. You are so fun. I mean, I love your vibe, your hair, everything is pretty awesome. And today we've talked about how to communicate, how to keep a safe space. We talked about how to have conversations about desires and wants and to explore and how to find compromise because not everybody's the same about what they want in terms of in the bedroom. And we've also talked about emotional intimacy, keeping the connection going. It's the physical touch, it's scheduling those days, it is um, sending notes to each other, having check ins with each other. All of these things are so important. And right here in February is a great time. Black History Month is February, and it's no coincidence that Valentine's Day falls in the month of February in the middle of Black history because I feel like Black people are the most loving people in the world. That's my bias. Nobody loves like we do. And I think it's great that February is Black History Month and it's also Valentine's Day. So let's celebrate Black love and share this video. Please like this video. Let me know in the comments as you watch what you'd like to see more of from Nikquan, what you want to hear me speak about, topics you want to hear me talk about. I'm so excited. Every time I see a therapist who's doing awesome things, I jump on it and I get really excited. I want to bring them on and we want to talk about these things because mental health, physical health, all of these things are so important for us. And I want to keep these conversations going, raise awareness. Of course, if you want to work with me, I'm a couples coach. I also work with, my specialty is trauma. And if you're interested in any of those topics, please reach out to me. But if Nikquan resonated with you and you want to get these intimacy cards and you want to talk about that and use her in this way, Nikquan, I'm sending some of my clients to you. I got
Yeah.
clients that need your special touch. We're gonna share people because I really do think that this is, once I deal with and tease out some of the baggage, this last little piece about how to be intimate in this way is a struggle. So maybe I'll start sending some people your way. We have to share the knowledge and the talent around because there's an abundance. So let's share it
That's
all.
right.
But anyway, I think I've said enough. Happy Valentine's Day. Enjoy Usher. I'm about to go get me something to drink and eat and go and sit and watch the football game. And anyway, thank you for coming on. Thank you everybody for coming in and for staying with us. Team Opulence, I see your question, but we're out of time. So put your question early. Get in early. Look out for my notifications and ask your questions early. Any last words, Nikquan, before we leave today from you?
Absolutely. So wishing everybody a fabulous Valentine's Day. As you date your partner, make sure that you're dating yourself, because intimacy starts with you, right? So make sure that you're loving on yourself and you're loving on each other. Anybody wanting to work with me, head on over to Instagram, Intimate Connections PLLC, and that'll, help take you with all my links and websites and all those things. And everyone know that Valentine's Day is important. It's an extra opportunity to show love, but show love all year round.
All year round. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.